Tenho a satisfação de apresentar para vocês o nosso primeiro convidado internacional, Andrei Sambra. Andrei é um convidado extremamente especial para nós, pelo fato de que tem uma conexão forte com o W3C. Ele participa dos esforços do W3C para uma rede aberta, uma rede descentralizada. Ele é pesquisador do MIT, que é o Massachussets Institiute of Technology, onde, junto com o criador da web, Tim Berners-Lee, vem trabalhando com Small Data, que é para nós aqui o armazenamento, né, entre diferentes dispositivos e entre diferentes aplicações e sistemas, particularmente da internet das coisas e Big Data. Vem também desenvolvendo em escala menor trabalhos com relação à descentralização da web. Faz parte da equipe do W3C, onde também trabalha, obviamente, com o desenvolvimento de padrões, bem mais especialmente dizendo com relação à identidade descentralizada no ecossistema da web. Trabalha também dentro do W3C com controle de acesso e, obviamente, por trabalhar com Small Data, também trabalha com armazenamento de dados. O tema que nós propusemos para ele foi o tema central hoje, que é re-descentralizar a web. E aqueles que precisarem de fone de ouvido, porque a palestra vai ser oferecida em inglês, aqui nessa porta nós temos a oportunidade de vocês recolherem ou colherem os seus fones de ouvidos para ouvir a tradução. Andrei, você tem a palavra.
So, thank you very much, Wagner. Before proceeding, I would like to tell you that I'm really humbled and honored to be here. I'd like to thank W3C for inviting me here and for giving me this chance to tell you a bit about my work. I'm sorry I speak English, so I know I might speak a little bit fast sometimes, but if you don't understand, please just wave or just give me a sign so I'll slow down. I'm going to be using this as a remote control for my presentation, so please don't be offended for me holding and looking at my screen now and then. So, let's start. So the question I would like to ask at this point is, why is it so important for us at this time to think about decentralization? And I think to first answer this question, we have to think about what centralization means and how it affects us. Basically, centralization is bad. It's bad because it is a cheap and easy point for regulation, control and surveillance. It is an easy one-stop shop for companies that want to collect our data, that want to make money out of our data. And this is not just bad for you, it's bad for everyone on the web. So, another problem is that centralization is also convenient because startups nowadays have a lot of pressure. They don't have time to spend researching how to make their product decentralized, how to make it privacy friendly and secure. They have to push a product out there as fast as possible. So sometimes they're going to cut corners, they're going to go with a off-the-shelf technology stack, which ultimately makes things bad for everyone. And wise minds once said that if you don't have time to do something right from the beginning, you won't have time to fix it later. So I know it's a bit of a steep price to pay in the beginning, but it's something that we should be thinking about. There's a bit of lag. Doesn't work. Can you refresh the page? Sorry, guys. It's technology. Not quite there yet. Okay, good, thanks. So, I suspect that many of you are familiar with this picture from The Economist. It's a pretty old picture, but I think after all this time it really depicts really well the state of the web today. I mean, if you look at it, you see a whole bunch of companies that, and a whole bunch of users that try to escape from these companies. This is a really well done picture because it's not just about what you see in this picture, it's also about what you don't see in this picture. For instance, you don't see any ladders that help people get out, you don't see any doors, you don't see any bridges, you don't see any effort from the company to help the user move away from that product. And I think this is actually what most people talk about when they say that when they speak about vendor lock-in. Basically, vendor lock-in, thank you. Vendor lock-in implies that your data is trapped. There is no easy way to get out of a service. There is, there are no bridges built between applications. There are no bridges built between services. And I know recently, for instance, we've seen companies like Slack, which offer all kinds of integration so that you can use their product, but at the same time kind of use other products. But what we don't see in that picture is that this is bad. It's bad because you're giving them even more data about you. All the data you're doing goes through them first and then through the other services, and this is not good. So, another problem is big data. If you think big data is big, think about 1 year from now or 2 years from now when we're going to be speaking about huge data, when the Internet of Things and the Web of Things are going to hit the market. We're going to have devices that will capture data about us every second, every minute, and we're going to end up with a bunch of data. And the question is, who owns this data? I mean, who gets to decide what happens to this data? Companies will make, will face a moment where decisions will be made about us, about whether we get a job, about whether we go to a good school, about whether we get a loan, or ultimately, computers will make life and death decisions about ourselves, all based on an algorithm that predicts how they should react based on our data. If you think this is gonna, we're not quite there yet, or we're still safe, think again. There's a paper that was published 2 years ago called The Search Engine Manipulation Effect and its Possible Impact on the Outcomes of Elections. These guys, Robert Epstein and Ronald Robertson, made a study, and their conclusion was that biased search rankings can shift the voting preference of undecided voters by up to 20%. And this shift can be much higher in some demographic groups. And also, such rankings can be masked so that people have no awareness of the manipulation. This means that search giants with a single tweak of a search algorithm control what data we get about our, the people that we're supposed to vote for. And if you think this is really not important, think again. In the United States, for instance, half of the presidential elections have been won by a margin of less than 8%. In 2012, the margin was less than 4%. Whoops. And 4%, think about it. That's like really below the 20% these guys are predicting. So you see how easy it is to influence our public opinion. Okay, now, technology aside, we also have to think about regulations and rules. The problem here is that powerful groups will decide who gets access to privacy and security and who doesn't. And the next billion web users will not have a a Bill of Rights. They will not have a Magna Carta. They will not have the laws and the regulation in place to protect them. So how can we help them? How can we, how can we make sure that the web stays open and privacy friendly for everyone? Basically, what we need to do is make this process as transparent as possible. We are, I suspect, some of us, if not most of us here, are technologists. We know how to use the technology. We know how to build things. So we have to think about how we build them so that they enable a better web experience for everyone and a safer web experience for everyone. So my message to you today is that you have to think about owning your own data. Don't rely on companies to do this for you. Try to think ahead. Try to, every time you use a service for free, on the web or in real life, I guess, there's no such thing as free. There's always a price we have to pay. And when you use a service for free, when you use Google for free, when you use Facebook for free, it's not actually free. You pay the service by giving them data, giving them access to your data. And this is a really high price to pay. Bottom line, I guess, is that we need to remember that our data is our own, and we have to decide how we want to use it and where we want to use it. So, what can we do about it? I think, I'm an engineer. I try to think about things in a really technical way. So the first thing I do usually is I try to decouple the problem into several smaller problems and try to tackle them one by one. So the first one I came up with is that we have to start thinking about user-centricity. Today when we sign up to a new service online, we go through the same process of giving them our name, our email address, giving them all kind of personal information about us. And that's just the beginning. When you go to Facebook, you use Facebook, let's say, for 3 years or 4 years. Think about all the time and effort you've put into creating content there, sending data, communicating with people and friends. What happens if tomorrow Facebook goes down? What happens if tomorrow Facebook changes their privacy policy or suddenly becomes a paid service? Is there an easy way to go outside and get the data from Facebook and move elsewhere? Sure, Facebook gives you a few ways to export data, but do you have any guarantees that data will work on other services? Do the other services actually want to import that data? So there are plenty of questions that I think can be fixed by thinking about a user-centric model. So when I speak about this user-centric approach, what I mean is actually that the data is stored under the user control. So when a service comes to you and asks for access, you decide, okay, I want to give you access, or I don't want to give you access. I want to give you access to this part of my personal data, or to that part, and we decide exactly who gets access and on what terms and on what grounds. And this is really powerful because we may decide to allow them access, but we also decide how much access they get, right? And this is where things get really interesting when you start owning your data, because a really cool thing that can happen at this point is that you can start charging them. It's your data, right? You own it, why not make some money out of it? So if Facebook comes to you, you can say, oh, okay, I'm going to give you access to my friends list, but I'm going to charge you, I don't know, let's say $5 for each contact. Depending on how important you are and how important your contacts are, you can charge more, I guess. But the bottom line is that we can start thinking about these paid alternatives to today's world, where actually, I'm going to give you an example. Do you know how much Instagram was sold for? I think it was a year and a half ago when they sold to Facebook. Does anyone know? Okay, I'm going to tell you. It was $1 billion. Do you know how big Instagram was as a company when they sold the company? They had 10 people. Okay? A 10 people company made $1 billion with the data that you provided. Is that fair? Well, it's something to think about anyway. So it doesn't have to be about money anyway. It can also be about reputation. In a world where you control your data, you can have people reshare it. We can add all kinds of useful features like provenance for the data. So when someone shares a piece of content, we can link back to the actual owner, and the actual owner may get at least reputation, if not, some parts of the money you get. So I think that's a bit of a shift in how we deal with how we use services online. Well, that sounds reasonable enough, I guess, right? So what's next? The next thing to do is to try to decouple everything. Right now, when we build a service, when we build an application online, we tend to put everything together in one place. We put the database in one place, we put a web server in one place, and we put the actual application, the front and the UI in the same place. And everything is located usually on the same server, or on the same servers. Sure, APIs tend to help. They allow you to slightly modify the application, but the application is ultimately tightly coupled together with the server on which it runs. Now, we can start changing that a little by breaking the problem down into several bits. What if we decouple everything? What if the application is completely decoupled from the data it produces, and the data is completely decoupled from the server it produces? So you'll end up with a bunch of servers that are really generic. They can store any kind of data. So you can move from one server to another one without any kind of penalty. You can just take the data, zip it up, and move it to a different server, and it should just work. So that's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is make the data really generic. Make it use a format that is understood by the server and by the application at the same time. So you don't have to think about exporting it anymore as much as just copying it from one place to another place. I know this is a bit of an abstract concept, but I will try to explain it later. And finally, we can decouple the applications. And by decoupling the application from the data itself, it means that anyone can create applications. It means that you can switch from one application to another one without actually losing any of the data that you have created in the previous using the previous application. How many of you use a Twitter client on your mobile phone, which is not the actual Twitter client that Twitter ships? Can I have a show of hands? So we have a few here. Yeah, so do you like being able to use a different application from the Twitter one? I guess you do, right? I mean, we all like to, one application doesn't fit everyone. That's known, right? So we like this flexibility to be able to choose the application that we want to use. Next, we have to think about re-decentralized services. And I think here actually re-decentralized is not a good term. Decentralization still implies a certain degree of centralization. I think what's best is if we can think in terms of peer-to-peer services. And in this case, data can reside on any machine. It can be accessible through the web from any place you're in. So how would this work? Well, it means that you can use multiple sources for the data that you want to use, that you're working with. It means that data can be stored on different servers, on different locations. You can store it in your basement at home. You can store it in, parts of the data can be stored on your home machine. Parts of the data can be stored on your work server, or parts of the data can even be stored on the cloud. The thing is that you should always have the freedom to decide where you want to put your data. Sure, some data is more private than other. For instance, banking records, right? I don't want to put them in the cloud. I don't even want to put them in my work server. I'm going to store them in my basement computer because I think that's safe. And I don't think a lot of people need access to that. So having a Raspberry Pi run on my basement, I think that's a pretty common thing. On the other hand, you may have really low privacy thing that you may want to share, like a blog or something. You may store that in the cloud. I think that's pretty safe, as long as you have the freedom to move from that cloud provider to another one later. And I think you can do that. So, let me show you exactly how this works right now. When you go to a website, you load the application, basically. You load the UI. You load the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS, images, and all bunch of useful things that make the application work, right? Next, what you do in this case is, once you've loaded all the application in your machine, in your local computer, then you don't need to use that website anymore. The application runs locally. And from that point on, you give it a hint about where your data is stored, and we will go and fetch it from that place. The application server, or the company that built the application, doesn't need to know who you are. It doesn't need to know where your data is. It can just go and do a bunch of tasks for the user without disclosing any information to whoever created that application. So, you see, in this way, we protect the privacy of the user, because we can decide, do we want to load an application from a company somewhere, an application provider? Do we want to install it locally, like we do it on our phones? The point is that we have a lot of freedom using this new model. Well, so the question now is, what do we stand to gain from switching to this architecture? Well, it turns out that we stand to gain quite a lot. For instance, we can finally move towards a truly transparent and accountable governance and democracy world. Think about the current voting process, for instance. It is too centralized. We go to a place, we vote, the votes, the ballots get put into one place, they get shipped to some company which handles them, they count them. And we all hope, actually, that this process is done by someone with a good moral code that doesn't want to cheat or doesn't want to influence the results, right? What if we could do this ourselves? What if we could, when we vote for someone, sign that vote with with some credentials that we own, so that later on, if someone wants to verify the accuracy of the results, they can easily do so just by looking at the people who voted. So it becomes really complicated to try to cheat during an election. And this doesn't apply just at the large scale of an election for the country. This can be for small tasks like a village, a local community that wants to, introduce a new proposal, or they want to be able to get people's opinion. We can do this right now using this technology. And we do it in a really transparent way. I think basically this is not just about, giving people the power, opening data, access to data. This is more about using your identity to do tasks that until now have been really out of the user's control. So we can also think about new business models, because data is no longer at the core of a business. The business will have to look at a different way of getting revenue, and those ways involve creating a better user experience or user UI, adding more features. We will have companies that will compete not over how much data we can grab, but how better the user experience can be. And that's going to be, that's going to be in the advantage of everyone, not just the company. I really want to see that happening as soon as possible. So, I'm a developer, right? As all developers, I like to play with things. I want to change things. So one new thing that we can gain out of this switch is we can add new features. We can add the missing features to applications, the features that we like and we don't have access to yet. And we can do this as, as simply as forking a repository on GitHub, for those of you who know what GitHub is. You add a new feature. If you think there's a feature that's missing from a certain application, and if that application is actually open, you can fork it, you can work on your feature, you can add your feature to the application. It will still work because the data is completely decoupled from the application. The data is generic. It can be reused by any application. So your new application was actually, it's compatible with everything. It will work based on previous data. And if the company who made the initial application thinks your change is good, if they want it, they can merge it back, and then everyone will have access to it. Think about how powerful that is. Switching to a new business model also means that new developers, new entry-level developers will be able to help, will be able to contribute to the existing apps. And they don't have to be just developers. They can be UI experts. They can be designers. They can do a whole bunch of things that right now they can't because applications are locked. If you want to go to Twitter, if you want to change something in Twitter, you can't unless you're working for Twitter. So in this way, a designer can help if it thinks there are, for instance, some accessibility features that are missing from the Twitter application. They can help with that, even if they don't have the development experience or the graphical experience, they're not a designer. So ultimately, the point is that through this process, everybody wins. It's not just the company, it's not just the users, it's everyone. Now, do you know what the main feature, the main cause for new startups that try to come up with a social network is? The problem is that it could be a way better application, it could be a way better service, but if you're all alone, if you switch to that service and you find yourself all alone, then it's useless because all your friends are left behind. So either, you have to convince them all to come, or you eventually will move back to whatever you used before because that's where all your world is. So, because using this new paradigm shift that I'm talking about here, in this new paradigm shift, the data is decoupled from the application. It means that Facebook can be just a front end for your data. It means that Twitter is just a front end. Your social graph stays the same. You can reuse it with any application. And not just social application, like a social network application. It could be any kind of application that, these days, we try to, and this is really disturbing. Lately, when you go to the App Store or the Android store, you try to download an application. Let's say it's a simple to-do list. Why does it need access to my contacts, right? Why there's always this need to invade the user's privacy and to be able to fetch a lot of data from the user, even if it's not really useful for the user? So I think we can fix some of that, if not all of it. I guess what I'm trying to get to here is that please don't take the easy way out. Think hard how you can fix the problem. Think hard how you can make your software, your service more privacy friendly, more secure, and think about it from the beginning. Don't make it a feature. Don't make it an afterthought. I think that's the message I'm trying to make here. So now what? Well, I think this is the point where we have to get to work, right? We have to translate those ideas into an actual platform, into an actual software that works. And this is what we've been trying to do at MIT. SOLID, which stands for Social Link Data, is a project that has been recently started by Sir Tim Berners-Lee. It's really exciting, and it aims to change the way we think about creating applications and working with data online. There are three main principles that we're aiming for, and these come from what I just mentioned. We're trying to decouple everything. We're trying to have the application completely separate from the data it produces, and then the data can be anywhere. We're trying to build a very generic platform and set of tools. This means that whatever server, whatever platform we're creating, it has absolutely no application logic in it. You can use it for any kind of application. It's as generic as possible. And we have to standardize as much as possible. We're actually, most of the technology that we're using now has either been standardized or is in the process of being standardized. So I think we're getting pretty close in that objective. So far what we have is a decentralized identity system which the owner uses and can, the user can manage. We have decentralized authentication. We have decentralized access control, and we have a RESTful data API. Most of these are actually standards now, and this is what we're doing actually. But the problem is that this project is big. This project is huge. If we want to make an impact, if we really want to change the world, we have to get everyone on board. We have to get you as developers on board. So let's not work everyone in our own corner, separate from each other. Let's all try to come together, think about how we can build things, think about how we can fix things. And we can do that by collaborating on this project. We welcome contributors from everywhere in the world. And we have a GitHub organization called SOLID. It has all kinds of interesting information. It has the software we've produced. It has the specs we have. So if you want to get involved, please check it out. I think, my final message to you today is that we have to work together. Our most valuable resource is our collective intellect. And I think in this regard, W3C can help a lot because it gives us a framework in which we can work together, in which we can take decisions together, in which we don't have to fight. We can share our ideas with everyone else. And ultimately, what it creates is a better standard that everyone will have access to and that will help everyone. So, we're smart. Let's put our brains to good use. I guess that's it. If you have any questions, now is the moment. If you like more technical details, you can check out that GitHub repository link, or you can find me, you can come to me after, and I will be glad to help you, I guess. So, thank you.
Ok. Nós vamos abrir agora para perguntas, comentários, contribuições. Começamos a trabalhar a ideia que nos move, que é voltar aos princípios originais da web e redescentralizar a web. Nós temos aqui 2 microfones, um está aqui, né, e o outro está no lado oposto. Aqueles que quiserem fazer perguntas, não se acanhem, por favor, venham até aqui à frente para que a gente possa acompanhar a sua pergunta. Você será filmado, vai ficar bem na fita, fica tranquilo, não tem nenhum problema. Então, nós estamos aqui abertos às perguntas. Quem que quer fazer perguntas, por favor, animem-se. Significa que vocês não entenderam do assunto? Nada? Ou está tudo ok? Ok, temos uma pergunta aqui, depois temos outra ali.
Bom dia, eu sou Nitai, trabalho no Ministério da Cultura. Você falou de tecnologia, queria saber o sobre padrões, descentralização, o que você acha do blockchain, a tecnologia que roda embaixo do Bitcoin, o que ela pode contribuir para toda essa plataforma aí que você está desenhando? E a segunda pergunta é quais são os conselhos, o que você enxerga que o governo precisa se atentar sobre esses padrões, essa preocupação em construir as plataformas desacopladas, de dados, software, e a questão de identidade também, para o governo, que tem sido uma discussão muito frequente recentemente.
Thank you. So I think those were actually 3 questions. The first one was about existing technology like Bitcoin, which attempts to decentralize some parts of our lives. I think those are really useful, and I think we have to try to see how we can make them work also on the web, because right now they're not really web friendly. And there are a lot of projects. I don't remember the names or the links right now, but there are plenty of projects which try to put even identity on a blockchain so that not one entity can govern your identity. Your identity is owned by you, you put it out there, and other people have an easy way to find it. And I think it's really useful to start thinking about how we can reuse parts of those technologies. That was question number 1. Question number 2 was, how can we help the government transition to this model, to this architecture and this technology stack? Well, I think the easiest way to do it is start small, start locally. Do you think there's a community project that you may want to be involved with? Do you think they could use this technology? Go and talk to them. Have them talk to us. We can work together, we can make this happen, we can help them. And once we start with the community and we make it work there, then we can go larger, we can go on a bigger scale. And when the government finally realizes that there's a lot of value from doing things, it's not just about transparency or holding someone accountable. It's also about improving the way we work with data today. It's a lot easier to make mistakes if you don't have access to the actual numbers, if you don't have access to the data, but it's a lot more powerful if you know exactly what data you're working with and how you can use it. And I think ultimately the government will realize that, and they will adopt it. So that's question number 2. Question number 3 was identity. Yes. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Estonia's e-ID system. Not many, I guess. For the past 10 years, they have implemented a system which gives people electronic ID cards, and these electronic ID cards have cryptographic keys on them, which means that people can do a whole bunch of things online suddenly. They can do payments, they can vote, they can do all kinds of things. And it has worked for them. It has been a complete success for the past 10 years. So I think we should follow that model. Thanks. Next.
Meu nome é Armando Barbosa. Eu sou de Alagoas, da Universidade Federal de Alagoas. A minha pergunta é, pegando um gancho na apresentação anterior, que falava sobre o acesso das pessoas à internet, todo mundo conhece que para que uma pessoa tenha acesso, pelo menos de consideravelmente pobre, ela tem que ir para uma lan house, e desse modo a internet a gente tem uma cadeia de roteadores, e o que dificultam a obtenção de um IP público que tenha conexão direta da web. Daí como você identifica um contorno para esse problema, né? Onde o IP vai ter vários usuários conectados?
Okay, I think there are two different answers. One of them is that what we're working on is not really at the level of the network, it's slightly higher. But the network is something that needs to be regulated at the level of the country. It's not something that one group can help with. It's part of the communication infrastructure of a nation. So it's the nation's duty to provide free, well, maybe not free, equal access for everyone. And this is what the net neutrality discussion was about. And I think if you're interested in doing that, you should maybe try to talk with people that are involved in, at the decision-making levels for all the net neutrality and all the laws that are being passed right now.
Olá, meu nome é Pedro Mariano, eu trabalho na Lua.net, parabéns pela sua palestra. A minha dúvida é mais na parte quando você citou o armazenamento desses dados serem de escolha do usuário. A grande questão é, o usuário, quando ele usa algum serviço de terceiro, por exemplo, uma Amazon ou qualquer outro local para armazenar esses dados, ele ganha de bandeja um reliability da data, que você não vai ter se você armazenar, por exemplo, no seu computador, porque você pode quebrar o computador e ele vai perder todos os dados bancários, como você citou. Existe alguma ideia de como tratar isso? Porque se você, na verdade, você não descentralizou, você descentralizou uma parte da data, mas ela está centralizada no seu computador agora, né? Eu queria saber se vocês têm alguma ideia de como lidar com essa parte da pessoa não perder os dados delas de uma vez só.
Okay, so I think this question has different aspects. One of them is how do you scale the system so that it becomes available for everyone, and how do you make sure that the data that you create is replicated or it's safe from being destroyed or from being intercepted? And I think those are very legitimate questions. And they can happen at different levels. For instance, if you say the data is stored in your basement and you fear that that may not be adequate for your use, then you don't have to actually, it's the really cool thing about this platform is that the data you generate can stay on a shared drive. It can even stay in an encrypted network container that you're just mounting locally. It doesn't have to be stored on the disk and not replicated elsewhere. You can have an NFS share. You can even have an encrypted Dropbox, which ultimately protects the data. The point is that your home server is the access point from the web to the actual data, to the actual bits. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Me chamo Jamil, trabalho no projeto Cielo e quero parabenizar pela excelente apresentação. A minha pergunta é mais relacionada ao Solid, né, a proposta que foi feita de poder fazer a integração e disponibilizar os dados. Fiquei curioso em saber se só existe a camada REST ou se vai ter algum outro tipo de forma de integrar com essa proposta, esse projeto. Existem algumas outras formas de integrações mais rápidas e eu queria saber se isso está previsto, está projetado.
Sorry, what exactly do you mean by integration? What do you want to integrate it with?
Quando eu estou Falando de integração, a parte da camada REST, que você colocou como um dos tópicos do projeto. Se existe alguma outra forma de integração com quem vai consumir e consultar os dados. E se isso está previsto no projeto.
Yes, I think we're trying to build a set of libraries and tools that will help you export the data from existing services. So you can easily grab everything you have right now and move it gradually into this new architecture. But also you can do this yourself. I mean, if you think you know how to export data from Twitter or from some other API and make it generic, following the solid architecture, then please help us do that. We need everyone's help. Yeah.
Olá, Andrei, parabéns pela sua apresentação. Eu sou Alexandre Gibotti, eu sou diretor executivo da ABRAD, Associação Brasileira dos Agentes Digitais. A minha pergunta é sobre a manipulação de dados no processo eleitoral. Nós temos eleições americanas agora, temos eleições municipais no Brasil o ano que vem e tivemos eleições presidenciais no Brasil o ano passado. No ano passado, houve um questionamento muito sério sobre a utilização de robôs em campanha. De que forma a sociedade pode se organizar e utilizar dos desenvolvedores e do conhecimento que tem o W3C para fiscalizar esse tipo de movimento? Obrigado.
Just a question. When you say robots, do you mean actual worker bots that would help with the election process, or do you mean actual artificial intelligence entities and how they get represented?
Não, eu uso de robôs com a intenção de realmente anabolizar os dados de campanha.
Okay. This is a really complicated question to answer because I think it deals a lot with the way every country handles the voting process and what legislation they have in place. If they think it's worth changing to an open way of doing elections, I think that's a really great thing, and I think it should be supported as much as possible. And I know Brazil has several groups that are interested in doing that, and my suggestion is that they should organize, they should come together, and they should fix the problem if they want to, and show that it works, and then the government will have to adapt, because they have to follow the people's voice.
Ok. Quero agradecer imensamente o Andrei por sua participação, por sua apresentação. Muito, muito, muito obrigado por ter disponibilizado o seu tempo e viajar, fazer uma viagem tão longa e poder compartilhar conosco das mesmas preocupações, né? Tanto quanto vocês no MIT, no W3C, né? Estamos no mesmo barco, estamos da mesma forma preocupados com o futuro da web e, mais do que preocupados, estamos construindo juntos. Muito obrigado.